Recruiting is marketing, and today, especially with all the new generations, people want a purpose. They want to know, why am I going to come to work for you? Or you're having to explain to them, like when I explained to you the scenario of a car rental thing, that is a great job. You might not ever leave the parking lot. You're driving brand new cars, you're parking them, you're working with a team. It's easy. Would you ever know to apply to that job? No.
Welcome to the Owner's Journal. Today, I'm excited to have Sonya Locke, CEO and President of EDS Service Solutions. Sonya is founder of the ERP Workforce Velocity that she spearheaded, which is a revolutionary workforce management system. Management manages every day, every stage of the employee's life cycle. Not too shabby that she was also honored with the 2023 Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year. Sonya, welcome to the Owner's Journal. I'm really excited to hear about your journey, about how you started both of these companies, both of these solutions that seem to be continuing to grow and expand. So welcome.
Thank you, Kurt. Thank you for having me.
So starting with the first, EDS Service Solutions, what is EDS? What does it stand for? I know the markets you're in. I know they're very relevant to travelers, world travelers, or folks that get in an airplane as often as I do, or more often than I do. But why don't you tell us a little bit about the company, and now we can take it from there.
So EDS, we are a national labor outsourcing and staffing organization. We do a little bit more than really labor outsourcing. We do full business process management. Primarily in the travel sector. We have businesses with all of the car rental companies and hospitality companies and some private aviation type industries. We also do a lot with automotive in the mobility sector, with Rivian, with Audi, with various big name clients. What's a little different about us is when we go in, we aren't like just providing a person here or there. We really optimize their back-end solutions. I like to say we're kind of the white label behind the scenes. We'll take over a whole department, say it's like the logistics or the moving the vehicles or housekeeping in a hotel type system. We not only hire, recruit, employ all W-2 employees, the employees, but we also train them onto their brand. And we have managers that are on site that manage that process. And a lot of times they're transactional based. So every time they rent a car, based on our labor analytics, we'll figure out what the KPIs are to manage that whole process and come up with more efficient ways to do it and manage it from top to bottom to them, to where we're more managing based on their principles to help them concentrate on their strategic growth. So we're taking care of all those people, mostly variable hour employees, where you need to shift focus. As you know, with travel, it's very unpredictable, as we've lived through 9/11, COVID, everything like that. You have to respond quite quickly. And, I might have 100 people working on Monday and 12 working on a Wednesday, but we're responsible for creating that labor and the hiring and the managing of them, which is also why Workforce Velocity was created. Workforce Velocity is our technology company out of Ireland that takes these KPIs, these Lean Six Sigma type studies, to understand all the parts that go into a customer's journey, right? Customer flies in, what all has to happen in that operations? What hours do they happen? What's their predictive patterns? And optimize the schedules and the labor for every single one of those. And because it's an ERP, from an employee applying, it automatically goes through the whole system. We know what their schedules are and their availability. We can track their performance, and it blends the two together, because I can work with some employees that may work one day, for 10 years, and they only like working just that one day a week. Maybe it's a supplemental job. So we can give them that benefit to these companies that really need that high-end talent, that want to work because they like the environment, they like the job, they're exceptional at what they do, but they don't want to have to deal with all the scheduling up and down and all of that. So that's kind of a little bit in a nutshell of what we do and what we excel at.
We talked before this, so we had a brief conversation where I asked you to describe the company, the type of work, the type of client. I think that would help our listeners today, sort of the third grade level explanation of a scenario where they hire. Who do they hire first? Did they hire EDS for the people to staff the company, and then the ERP solution, the workforce solution, the cloud-based ERP, or is it? I would imagine it's that way, or is it vice versa? And
It's actually
the
combined.
scenario. I'm sorry.
So I'm sorry, it's actually combined. So when
Okay.
we go and outsource a location, and let's just talk car rental because that's the easiest one to explain.
Yeah.
You go to rent a car. They may have 100 parking spaces, but they're going to rent 3,000 cars.
Yep.
Our job is moving all those cars around there, getting them washed, getting them back in there, and logistically from multiple lots. When we created Workforce Velocity, that allows us to do that efficiently because we have automatic schedules. So it comes with part of our team. But when we manage it, we manage the whole process. We're an extension of their management team. They don't tell us how many people we need. We tell them, and our job is to get it done at the
They,
service levels.
they're inextricable. You cannot hire EDS without hiring workforce velocity.
Right. It comes
Right.
with it because that's why Workforce is so powerful because it was built by our operations teams from our recruiters needing the ability to quickly not only hire people, but assess their talents and match them with schedules to my operations team that need real-time visibility throughout the country. I mean, I can tell you right now how many people are in my location in LA and who was 5 minutes late and who was not because everything's real time. And then it all syncs back to our payroll and our billing. And it's like we have one person, or two people in our payroll department that actually cut the check for 7,000 variable hour employees every week, with just two people in 2 days. And it's because and every airport we operate in is completely different compliance, regulations,
Oh,
PTOs.
oh,
So we had to build a back end system that could handle that.
yeah.
And there was nothing in the market that could. So that's what the beauty is of our technology is it's really a cohesive thing that comes from a business need, not just a technology for technology's sake, but how to marry those together to be more efficient. So we can't do it without it. And so that's why it's like part of our program.
What a comprehensive solution that is. It's not really just BPO. I think of BPO, I think of big consulting firms like an EY, right? And like,
Right.
yeah, we're going to be your BPO for the next 6 to 9 months. We're going to charge you $250,000 a week, and then we're out, right? But with you, this is essentially a lifetime solution to a problem at airports, where you're staffing the entire parking lot essentially, and all of the folks in it, and you're making sure that all of those car rental agencies have what they need so that travelers are happy, essentially, right?
They have the people there when they need it. And also their cost is contained, right? Because we dictate when we start, one of the first things we do is we understand what the labor market is. And we won't undercut that. Like, okay, hey, here's what is your competitors paying, what you should be paying. Here's what we can get the people for doing this job is. And we price it. That's why I say we a lot of times will price it transactionally. And if they do 100 rentals, it's this price. If they do 1,000, it's this price. There's no variance. There's no we have ownership of it. We both have skin in the game. We have to be productive and efficient at what we do. And then they have the trust in us that, we're really part of their success, not part of, not just a vendor.
That's fantastic. And I hate to keep asking you questions specific to the company but I'm just really fascinated with it, and it's a unique model. What does your footprint look like right now in terms of airports in the United States? And it leads to my next question about what market you're going after next.
So we have 130 locations throughout the US. We're in all the top 30 airport markets, really probably top 50. And then we have about 40 other cities. So we're really pretty much in all the top ones. But it's also unique because like we won't do just one brand. We have MSAs with all of the brands, but I have unique management teams at each one of those brands. So if I have an airport that I have 4 brands, they're all obviously synergies, but they don't mix people and say, oh, you go over here and you go over there. We train them to be part of that organization. And then we have the 4 management teams, to make sure that nobody's gets, slighted or you're robbing from Peter to save Paul. So that's one of the ways that we've grown a lot. So
All right. So this
really
is
coast to coast. I can't think of a city. The only one we're not in really is Alaska.
okay. Well, maybe that's next.
Or
I'm
Dakota.
going to go to markets. I'm going to go to where you're looking next toward the end of the interview. Right now, I want to switch to management and I want to switch to team because you mentioned those 2 words. We had a pretty difficult time in the world in 2020, from about 2020 to 20 to current, right? In terms of transportation, travel, work from home, work-life balance, remote work. Tell me how you were able to adapt your company during the COVID pandemic and sort of lessons learned there. And question 1. Question 2 is, who was your team that helped you get through that? It wasn't just you. I mean, this is not something you run by hitting a button, this company, right?
No, and very, very much I can go into the team because none of us had worked so hard for so little. I mean, we had a 95% drop overnight. And as I said, there are employees. So we had over 4,000 employees coast to coast, and then COVID hit. And also being transactional, I'm paying for these employees, I'm working them, but there's no transaction, there's no rentals, there's no thing to do. So one of the things was, and also on top of that, we're essential workers. So we were still working. And I can't even tell you how many hours that we worked. We had shipments of sanitizers and stuff like that coming to my HR directors in pallets. We had my VPs, their mothers were making masks for all of our employees. We became the foremost authority on CDC because we were having to consult our clients on what to do. And
Wow.
especially in many of these locations, like with their moving cars, sometimes they're on a van. You can't put 12 people on a van during COVID. And you also had people freaking out. The car would come in and somebody'd say, "Oh, that person had COVID," and it would just be sealed off on a lot and just scattered throughout. So it was an amazingly crazy,
We're getting a little
crazy time.
PTSD when you're describing this, and we're getting a little bit of
Yeah, and it was
clock.
so funny is our corporate office, because we support all of our branches and they're all working, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes like what we had to do is, I mean, we went through every single morning, every employee list for every single location,
Mhm.
because some employees need to take off for health reasons, right?
Yep.
And then some of them, we just didn't have the volume, but we didn't want to lose them. Our most
Mhm.
important thing was we wanted to preserve our management team, and that was number one. And so, a location like San Francisco, where I had literally 30 rentals for the entire month of April, a place that used to rent 15,000 a day. You might have a manager there. You might have like 2 or 3 managers that are working to
Yeah.
handle that whole back end, but they're there. They're still part of that. So I think that was one of the things, was that preserving our management team and the talent that we have that's grown with us was so incredibly vital. And that constant communication and that concern for not only our clients, but for our employees, and how do we protect them, because that's now our job. So when I go back to what I was saying is, at our corporate office, until Georgia shut down for a hot 2.5 weeks, right? We
Yep.
were all like, everybody was still coming in. We're like, we can't leave. We're having to support these people. Like, that would not be right. But we had everybody create a remote office so that payroll and things like that could still continue going. And about, oh gosh, probably about 7 months, 8 months after the pandemic started, and then we had the opposite effect, and it was crazy. My HR director and my talent director came in and was arguing with my controller, and they're like, "Now, how long were we out of the office? Was it 7 weeks or was it 12 weeks?" And he looks and goes, "It was 2.5 weeks." And we were like, "Why did that feel like 8 weeks?"
Oh my God.
But
Yeah.
we had constant communication, constant, and
Yeah.
also cross training. Like my HR director, she became, and she's one of my most vital team members. She's my cultural beacon, foremost authority on everything to do with COVID, CDC. We had, posters. We were like thermometers. We had, like I said, wear a mask, don't wear a mask, everything you could possibly think of. My recruiters, they became SDRs. They were calling for sales to try to get other places that people could work, went into safety type stuff for other businesses. My VPs became the head of procurement. One of them, I don't know how they got, we got a whole bunch of masks from, I think, China, because they all had different language on it. He's like, I know a guy that knows a guy that we can get. And so
Yep, I remember those days. Yeah, I know a guy. I know a guy. I know a
I know a guy
mask
that's
guy.
like, but I
Yeah,
gotta pay him
mask guy.
cash. It's like, okay, that sounds really sketch, but okay. So everybody looked, I mean, we were, and then everybody became HR, right? Every one of my regional managers, it was a huge humanity crisis, right? It wasn't a business crisis, it was a human crisis. So they were working with, the employees that were in the field or that were not able to work, or, and talking to all of them and trying to be fair and trying to kind of like, we'd have, okay, you're going to work these days, you're going to work these days, because it was also their livelihood. So we did a great job retaining our staff. We did not lose one manager. And we actually grew our business because we also worked with our clients. We had two clients that went bankrupt,
Mhm.
which was big because we pay for all these people's payroll. So it's not like it's profit that we're losing if a client goes bankrupt. We're losing actual money that we've spent. But we worked with them and we knew they would come back. And so, we were creative on, we didn't overcharge them or say, oh no, we're going to go hourly. We worked with them. We knew it was transaction. We knew what our I guess burn life was. Where, we counted it down almost every week. Like, okay, how long can we survive, as this
Mhm.
continues on? And how do we plan for that and be measured? So it was a lot of communication. Like I said, 2 calls a day with the entire leadership team from across the country.
So if I were to summarize what I heard, the lessons learned, what you gained from this horrible experience. Number one was communication skills. Your leaders became excellent communicators. I mean, if you don't communicate something, people could die, right? So you become very good at communication, right? Cross-function training. So not only did, your HR person knows the compliance laws, but now all of a sudden he or she, I don't know the gender, but knows something about science and medicine and rules and regulations of the CDC. Those two major things, and then just adaptability, right?
Right.
Tell me about the innovation that came out of the pandemic. I think there were some new things that you got into, or new ideas maybe that spawned from your team. Um, think on that one. That wasn't a prepared question, but I think on some of the innovation that came out of that, if you will.
I can tell you one of the things that came out like instantly was with technology. And that's where it's great having our own development team, right? So what we had to go to is virtual recruiting and virtual onboarding everybody. And they built us a system in literally, I think it was 4 weeks for everything to be digital. And now, we use that today. Like we always do. We're very human nature. Like every single person that applies through Indeed, for instance, they're going to get a phone call and they're going to have an in-person interview somewhere, unless they're in a remote location, which now we can do that very well through Zoom. But it's very human. But our back end, they
Yeah,
apply online. Once they're
automated.
interviewed, everything is automated. I mean, everything's digital, everything's done like within 24 hours. So that was a huge game changer for us because, like I said, it just streamlined the entire hiring and recruiting process, and it was necessary.
So you became
Um,
more efficient with the pandemic because you switched to AI, you switched to I guess really just automated recruiting, but the human element didn't change. It was just the way that it just shifted from tasks that could be dumbified or just repeated by technology, right? To the ones that cannot be duplicated by artificial intelligence, which is you got to pick up the phone. You have to have emotion in your voice. You have to ask questions a certain way. You have to be able to understand who you're talking to and the type of person they are, right? Am I speaking your language right now?
yeah, and actually, I was going to say we don't use any AI in our hiring process. automation and AI on the back end,
Ah,
automation, because the reason why, and that's also why my recruiters turned into SDR instantly, is because recruiting is marketing, you know?
mm,
And today, especially with all the new generations, people want a purpose. They want to know, why am I going to come to work for you? Or you're having to explain to them, like when I explained to you the scenario of a car rental thing, that is a great job. You might not ever leave the parking lot. You're driving brand new cars, you're parking them, you're working with a team. It's easy. Would you ever know to apply to that job? No. So our recruiters, that's why the first step is, if you're hitting a button on Indeed like everybody else, we're not just weeding you out, we're calling you, we're talking to you, we're seeing if you qualify, we're seeing if you'd
I
be a
like
good
that.
fit, and telling them that, and then getting them to meet the, to go to the office, to meet the team. But then after that, it's instant. Like I can hire you within 24 hours because I can get everything done. You're all in there, your I-9s, everything is completed. That part is where we use technology a lot. Now with remote, that is where, then we did Zoom, where, we had to start recruiting in like Spokane, Washington. And I think we did do something in the Dakotas because these small little offshoot branches, they also needed people, but we weren't there. So we had to like, kind of come up with, okay, how do we do a real interview over Zoom and talk to the person, but still have that personal touch. So that was definitely one of the innovations. And yeah, as far as other ones, I mean, there was a lot of changes in like workflows and stuff like that as well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your team. Tell me a bit about the leadership team there in Atlanta and maybe across the country, and sort of what gaps they fill for you, or you know how to handle I don't know, maybe a certain aspect of the business, and they can handle another aspect, and the value that they bring.
Yeah, and I'm very big on that. I always tell people you can only grow so far by yourself. So I think that's one of I tell everybody my talent as a CEO is I'm a good collector of people. I don't need to be able to do everything perfectly. I need to be able to find the right person, bring them in, trust them, empower them. I don't have to get involved with each one of my departments because I have incredible leaders that they're my partners. They're not my employees. They're my partners. They would help accelerate us. And I've been very fortunate. Most of our staff, especially with leaders, they've been with us for 13, 14 years. And a lot of them started out at the very beginning. Four of my regional managers started out as drivers. And now they're regional managers in charge of like 10 different cities. And they command all the account managers under them, but also they teach them, and they all have different personalities, which is what I really appreciate, is those different perspectives. And so we have a very I'd say horizontal structure. We're not a hierarchy type stuff,
Mhm.
where you're kind of the master of your domain and you have your teams underneath you, but we're all one big spoke in a wheel. So with one side of my talent acquisition, my girl Griselda has been with me since she was 21 years of age. She has literally worked every department of the organization except for payroll, I said. But what I'm so proud of her and why she is really like she is like my right hand is her team, her recruiting team. And she has a team of about 50 plus another 150 out in the field that do all the hiring and recruiting for our whole organization. They have their own culture and team, and she is their boss, and they love her so much. I mean, like they really it's their own unique team, and they work with us. But I'm so proud of her because it's one thing to be a leader, it's another to teach someone else to become a leader, to teach that next generation. And under her, my one of my regional recruiters, it's so funny, she almost took the same journey. She started at 20. Now she's in charge of half the country because Greece has
Wow.
now opened a whole new contact center in Mexico, because she's in Aguascaliente. And she's there for her other life reasons. And one of the things that was interesting, and this is where also an adaptation from COVID and stuff, was she was afraid, hey, I'm not going to be in the corporate office anymore. Do I have to give up? I'm going to have to leave. And I'm like, why? It's like you're not in San Francisco either. That doesn't make you less impactful. You know everything. So you can work remotely. It doesn't matter where you're working. We can communicate without having to be physically there.
So you provide a lot of autonomy for your leaders and their teams. They don't have to be in Atlanta, in a physical room with you every 2 weeks or every once a month for an all hands. You kind of let them run their own shops. It
Yeah.
sounds like.
Exactly. Actually, most of my leaders are like in my corporate office. My controller, of course, has been with me, and I think that's where you go back into a lot of trust.
Mhm.
Is that he t one day told me, he goes, Sonia, I think I know more where your money is than you probably do. And I'm like, yes. But that's good because you're getting all the checks and you're writing them out, and I have to be able to trust you. But my other one that's here is my director of HR, and she is not only my good friend, but she is, I would say, the cultural beacon of the company. And I call her my unicorn. Because one, she won't take a day off. I usually have to try to get her to, but she listens and she listens to everyone. So it's not just having to handle legal and compliance and benefits, but it's really also being there to deal with every manager and every employee and having a listening board. And I think she is essential because you have to have that cultural beacon that
For
is
sure.
giving you the heart of the company.
Those
Um,
those people are very hard to replace.
oh,
That
they're impossible.
you can replace the role and the title, but you can't really replace the person if they're that good, right? I mean, I've seen it.
And that's why the beauty with her and with Greece and with my other leaders as well is empowering them to build the teams underneath them, you know?
Hmm.
And that's what creates the next generation. That's what makes a company
Mm,
survive and thrive is you're not just saying, okay, here's your role and this is your succession. They have the ability to be creative. They have the ability, they come to me with like ideas of, hey, I want to do this, it's like, is that okay? And I'm like, I give them guidance, but I have to let them be completely in control of what we should do
right.
that's right and be in control of their teams of who they're hiring and bringing those people into the fray.
So what
Uh,
I'm hearing is the succession planning for the organization really is department by department. You don't say, all right, well, it looks like you're going to retire soon, or at some point we have to get a successor for you. I'm thinking this person over here. I'm thinking I'm going to get this person. No, you have a whole, you let them handle that. You're like, all right, I'm going to coach you. I'm going to teach you all the ways of talent development, all the ways of HR, all the ways of finances. You let them kind of handle that team building, uh,
yes.
which is brilliant. It's kind of like the Steve Jobs approach. The quote. We don't hire people to tell them what to do. We hire smart people that are smarter than us, so they can tell us what to do. It sounds like you have that mentality and that culture at EDS. Am I correct?
We really do. We have, and that's for having the different perspectives. That's what helps you grow as a company is having a diverse perspective, giving people the tools to succeed,
Mhm.
not, and we quantify more people on their soft skills than we do what a resume says, right? I'm looking for people that want to take ownership. And one of my regional managers has also been with me for about 15 years. I remember there was a conflict one day and he called me and he was like, Sonia, you don't understand. I own EDS. And he's like, I'm the owner. And I was like, that's exactly right. They are the owner. And that's
Wow.
what our culture believes is that everybody has a perspective and something they can bring to the table. And challenging them to always think there's not a right way. There's not just this structure, that structure. If you do this, you're going to go here. You have to find people's talents and where they belong. Some people you might hire them for my payroll person that I talked about. She actually started with my recruiting department, but she
Mhm.
really wanted into the accounting side. And we're like, and she had a degree in it, but she didn't have a lot of experience in it. So we're like, okay, all right, we're gonna give you a chance. And we did, trained her, phenomenal. Obviously, she can run it by herself. So finding people's soft skills and their inner drive and giving them the freedom with guidance, right? You don't want them to make the same mistakes you do. You have to
Right.
give them guidance,
Right.
but giving them the freedom to change the person change, the way you do things. That's what makes a company grow. Otherwise,
Yep,
it becomes
I agree.
stagnant.
I agree. You sound like a really dynamic leader and someone I'd love to, work with, if not for, someday. Wow. I'm almost speechless after that one. So
And then
the
I
word
also,
owner.
I can't forget, like I've mentioned some of my regionals, but I also have two VPs. Um, and they don't work here in the office either. They're in Tampa because that's where their family's at. And so it doesn't matter. One runs the West Coast, one runs the East Coast, but they work with my regional operations managers, with all of my clients, and they have grown the business. I mean, we have grown by, since I took it over, 1,879%. I mean, like an astronomical amount, all organically, no marketing, but because of their relationships, because also too, when they're dealing with not only my regionals to uphold our operational excellence, but with the clients, they build trust. And they build trust because I am completely transparent with them. My books are an open book. They can see the P&Ls, they can see where they
Right.
are, and they're not rewarded based on sales goals, they're rewarded based on EBITDA goals. So they have
Mhm.
an ownership of the business as a whole. Like it's not just going out and selling something stupid, but does that make sense for us? Is it part of what we can do, what will build our company, or is it, you know, just trying to get a commission check, and they don't live by that, which what makes them so excellent and
So
partners.
you're a great interview for a podcast called The Owner's Journal because you've said the word at least 3 times in the last 4 or 5 minutes that people just take ownership and they consider themselves an owner. They might not have the title, they might not have the equity. We haven't really talked about that. They may, but we just the idea that people own things and call themselves owners makes me think I don't know if I would rebrand this podcast anytime soon. We've considered it, but I like the mentality that your employees feel. And I was actually going to ask you, what do you call your employees? Do you call them partners? Do you call them owners? Is there a specific name or anything cute like that? Or the Fortune 500 company, we used to call ourselves just partners, even though it was a publicly traded company and we we didn't have any ownership, but
Yeah, I always get like, and I always say everybody, it's all about like my team and my family. And then
team
I call them colleagues, or we
colleagues.
work together, and then they'll say, "Oh no, you're actually the boss." I'm like, "No, not really."
Yeah, yeah. So it's very fun.
I will say that one of my VPs, and it's just a funny term, but he calls me mama. So
Okay.
But it was actually no, and actually people will say, "Oh, you're his mother." I'm like, "No, he's
Yeah.
like 40. I'm not that old. Like, why
Oh,
do you
that's
think I'm that
funny.
old?" But it's just
That's
like,
funny.
so, I try not to put labels on it because, like I said, without them, there is no business, right?
Right.
So they are who work with me. I have the honor of working
Yeah.
with them. They're not my employees.
What a great culture. Tell me, coming toward the end of the interview now, tell me a little bit about what you're excited about in 2025, the new markets you're trying to get into or that you're already in that you're looking to expand in. I think I know which one you're going to bring up, but talk to me about that.
So we're really expanding our hospitality division. Like I said, we've grown organically, unbelievably whiplash fast on many things. So we're very selective on finding partners, right? Partners that we can work with, that we are a part of their success, and not a vendor. So we are launching our hospitality division more on a very national scale, very large scale, and working with that, getting to the right inroads, understanding that what our value is that we bring, we're not just typical staffing, which is what's generally out there, but kind of that consultative partner that's working together to come up with a solution. Because, let's face it, the hospitality industry, I mean, it's still, I would say, about 70% staffed to what it is, and you feel it. I mean, I travel all the time, and one of the first things that you notice when you go in someplace is lack of staff, right? Or, they're not cleaning the rooms because of COVID. It's like, no, you just don't have the staff to clean the rooms. And
Right.
and it's making a difference. And how do you differentiate yourself if you can't provide the service, that makes a place memorable, right?
I'll tell you what, if at least the last 5 hotel stays, all good places, but yeah, if there were just a few more people that could help you figure out where the outlet is, or where, where the kitchen is, at critical times of the day, right? I mean, you're on a business trip and you're like, I have to get the computer set up, yeah, I have to get it set up quickly. And you're looking around like, where, where's someone that can help me or point me in the right direction? So if I'm in the Hilton family or the Marriott family right now listening to this, I'm going, I should probably give her a call.
Well, it's like I said, everybody like I mean, I love AI. I mean, I think AI is a great accelerator and we utilize it. But that doesn't replace necessarily the human connection. And places want to go to, oh, just all self-service. You're losing your customer journey that way. You become transactional, right?
Mhm.
You can't create an experience. You can't create a memorable stay or something.
Right.
And that's what we're hoping to do with the hospitality sector on a more large scale national basis now.
Sonia, this is a fascinating interview. Thank you so much for your time today. We just scratched the surface. Let's do this again. Let's do this again a few months down the road and see how you're doing with hospitality. I have a feeling you're going to dominate that market as well.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you so much, Kurt. I really enjoyed speaking with you. And anything you need, just let me know.